russosbrand.com, where the pros are the pros.
Well, let's talk. This is something, Vince, that you and me will talk about on Monday's show, but I think this is important enough to also talk about on this show.
Well,
so, Tony. No, you're welcome. Yes. So, Tony Khan was on the NFL Network doing an interview, and he said this about WWE. He said, "We are the Pepsi of pro wrestling, and we're up against a really evil juggernaut. WWE is our competitor. That's who we're facing. AEW is like the Pepsi of pro wrestling. WWE is like the Harvey Weinstein of pro wrestling."
Wow. That's a shot directly at Vince McMahon, that's for sure. That is undoubtedly.
And isn't that kind of weak? Isn't that kind of weak, Al? Because what Jeff and I spoke about is, bro, listen, let's be honest. Let's be fair. Vince isn't there anymore. So now you're referring to everyone there, Ari Emanuel, everyone else there is the Harvey Weinstein of Tony knows Vince isn't there anymore, but he also, knows a lot of people don't know Vince is there anymore. So he's literally taking a shot that is so totally unfair, and I think he knows it.
Well, and let's face facts. I mean, WWE is not competing with AEW at all. They're on a whole different level. And I'm not saying that it is a disparagement to AEW. It's just a fact. And in order to have a competitor, both sides need to be competing against each other. You can't have a race and then only one person's trying to outrace the other person. You know what I mean? It has to be that both are competing, trying to win the race. Well, AEW should stick to just, Tony Khan should stick to just AEW and only be concerned with AEW and not consider himself a competitor to WWE. He should consider himself AEW an alternative to WWE. But instead, there's this idea that AEW is competing with WWE, but trust me, WWE is not competing with them at all because they're on such a higher.
Al, explain to everybody how can doing that backfire on Tony Khan?
Dramatically, because you can't. I've said this when that mindset was present in TNA, that we are not competing with WWE. We are offering an alternative to WWE. We're not competing with them because they're not competing with us at all. And we can't, and no one can in the realm of professional wrestling, sports entertainment. No one can compete with WWE for a very valid reason, and that is the amount of time that WWE has been in existence. With time comes knowledge and experience, and with that knowledge and experience comes connections, and with those connections comes a certain amount of sway or stroke or power that you just can't beat. If you were to go into a city, and let's say it's me, OVW, is going into a city and I'm wanting to run an event. Listen, nobody's going to bend over backwards for me to help me out. You know what I mean? They're not going to pave the way. They're not going to give me a discount on anything. They're not going to allow me to just do something without the proper permits or whatever. If WWE walks into town, hey, what do we need to do? How can we facilitate this? Because they are in such a position that they so directly affect the actual economic, situation in that community. When they come in, they have a direct impact by just simply being there. And until you get to that point, to that level, you're not going to be competing with WWE.
And you're talking about decades, Al. You're talking about decades.
You're talking about Vince's great grandfather.
I'm talking about AEW. How long it would take them to reach that stat? You're talking decades.
Because it took from the 40s all the way till now to get there. It didn't just happen overnight. You're talking about Vince's great grandfather. You're talking about Vince's grandfather. You're talking about Vince's father. You're talking about Vince. All of that if you just go from the time period of Vince alone, that's 40 years, 40 years plus, because he took over in 1982. So, or yeah, 19, same year I broke in. So he took over his father's company in 1982. The war in 84 took off, and when he was going national, and he's been running ever since. We're in 2024. I mean, you cannot even hope to be able to do something like that. Now, granted, like back and I always said this back in the day when you consider that with Impact TNA, we were able to put on a national television product that looked like an alternative to WWE, operated like it was an alternative, and we did it with basically 1/3 of the staff, 1/3 of the production staff, 1/3 of the talent, 1/3 of the resources. Did a pretty good showing. But the problem was there was this same mindset that there is in AEW of we have to compete with WWE, and it's a losing game. You're just not going to do it.
Yeah, it's just
in addition to they've got so many more resources on financial and etc. on top of that.
Yeah.
Where they've gotten, where you're just at right now, where AEW is right now, is where Vince was back in 86.
Right. Yeah. Al, it's just like an expansion team. If there's a new baseball team coming out of Nashville, an expansion team for Major League Baseball, bro, they're not going to walk in the door and compete with the Dodgers as an organization. That's and to think you can is absurd.
Well, and to put yourself out there as if you are a direct competitor is even more ridiculous. I mean, to say that in public. But then when you try to sway the public's opinion by, demonizing and betraying the other company in some way, by taking that shot, it's the old mantra is true. You never get over by burying somebody else. It's not like that made anybody go, ooh, well, now I'm going to watch AEW because, WWE is the Harvey Weinstein. Actually, it might cause intrigue for the audience, and it might drive more people to watch because it's salacious and it's interesting. Ooh, what's going on over here? Let's take a look,
But also, too, the thing is, I mean, now, by making a statement like that, isn't he also putting himself in jeopardy of a lawsuit? Like, why? I don't know. Like, why would you want to do that, bro? I mean, WWE can turn around and say, man, that's slander. You hurt our company. That's defamation. Yeah. I just wonder if Tony considers these things before he says something.
I don't think that was considered. No, I don't think so. And calling himself Pepsi to the evil empire, and I
mean, Pepsi may sue him for making that comparison.
That they could, there could be damages there too. I mean, because he's tied himself into Pepsi with the remark about, a company being the Harvey Weinstein of wrestling. Just nothing ever positive comes out of trying to throw dirt on somebody else, because you just don't look good yourself. You don't look. Prime example within the wrestling business, when Bischoff was with WCW was live and thought, hey, let's hurt WWF's business, and we'll announce the finish of the world title match. And then it ended up, that was the one key moment that swayed a lot of viewers to tune in and start watching from there forward.
And
that was a big mistake.
All right, Jeff, what else we got for Al? Yo, bro, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, there's plenty more where that came from. As a matter of fact, right now, if you've never been a Patreon subscriber, you can go to patreon.com/RussoTWC and grab a free week of Russo's brand. That's right, it's free. Patreon.com/RussoTWC.
What's up, Brand? This is Jeff Lane inviting you to come hang out with me over on Twitch. I'm live several nights a week playing games, classic and new, currently going through Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, the new Contra game, and more. So check me out, Jeff Lane 22 on Twitch.
Pick up Mike Durbin's Conan action figure, bro. Look how beautiful this thing is. I freaking love the packaging, man. Look at this. MikeDurbin.com, guys. Help Mike out, man. This is a beautiful action figure, bro. Beautiful. MikeDurbin.com.